Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are taking a look at a feature that literally changes the game for your productivity. If you've ever felt totally bogged down in that endless manual back and forth of AI prompting just to get a multi-step task done, well, you are in exactly the right place. We're mastering Claude's dynamic workflows. Okay, let's dive right into this. The source material notes that the author has been using dynamic workflows extensively for competitive analysis. And while they admit the system might not be absolutely flawless just yet, the depth of the analysis has been, quote, pretty impressive, giving them quite a few new ideas and sources of inspiration during development. And honestly, that's exactly what we want from our tools, right? Not just raw execution, but true inspiration and deep analysis. So how exactly does Claude pull this off? Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, what are dynamic workflows? Then, how to trigger them. Next, we'll look under the hood at sub-agents and finally wrap up with some pro tips for workflows. Let's hit section 1. What are dynamic workflows? Let's cut past the buzzwords and get a concrete understanding of what we're actually dealing with here. The official definition tells us that a dynamic workflow is a reusable JavaScript script generated by Claude to coordinate and orchestrate multiple sub-agents. So there's no complicated magic going on. At its core, it's really just code. But it's code that Claude writes for you on the fly to manage an entire team of AI helpers. Breaking that down a bit further, there are 3 key characteristics you'll want to remember. First, like we said, it's essentially a JavaScript script. Second, it's completely native, meaning it's generated by and designed to run entirely within the Claude environment. And third, so the crucial point is this, its primary building blocks are sub-agents. It isn't just running simple, flat commands. It's actually deploying highly specialized sub-agents to tackle different pieces of your overarching task. Moving on to section 2, how to trigger workflows. You might think this is incredibly complex to set up, but let's look at how you actually get Claude to build one. Triggering a dynamic workflow is surprisingly simple. You really don't need some massive convoluted prompt. There are essentially 2 trigger words. You just need to mention the word ultracode in your prompt or explicitly state that you want to use a workflow to complete your task. Seriously, that's the whole shebang. Dropping either of those into your instructions signals to Claude to shift gears and generate a dynamic workflow instead of just giving you a standard text response. Which brings us to section 3, under the hood with sub-agents. You've triggered the workflow, so what actually happens next? Well, now, what's really interesting about this slide is that if you inspect the source code Claude generates, you'll discover it imports several functions that are absolutely not part of standard JavaScript. You have agent, which literally creates a sub-agent to handle a specific task. You have parallel to run multiple tasks at the exact same time, and pipeline to connect tasks in a sequential flow. It even uses phase to track progress across different stages, log for workflow logging, and budget to actively manage the workflow's computational resources. Basically, Claude is writing a highly structured program to micromanage your request. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive shift in how we think about automation. The underlying mechanism here shares a lot of similarities with traditional data concepts like ETL pipelines or MapReduce. However, the main difference, and it's a huge one, is the primary unit being orchestrated. In traditional setups, the unit is a dumb data processing task. But in Claude's dynamic workflows, the primary unit is an intelligent agent. You are essentially writing code to manage a dynamic team of digital workers, not just moving data from point A to point B. Let's see how this builds into real-world application in section 4, Pro Tips for Workflows. Understanding the theory is great, but applying it smoothly is what really matters. One of the best things about these workflows is that you never have to reinvent the wheel. Once you start using them, simply type the command /workflows to see everything created during your current session. When a workflow finishes its job, it's marked with a little green check mark. Just select it, press S on your keyboard to save it, and just like that, this workflow can be reused over and over again. It functions exactly like a newly acquired, highly specialized skill. Finally, a really critical piece of operational advice. Because dynamic workflows spawn multiple sub-agents working simultaneously, you can easily end up receiving a massive mountain of permission requests. And unless your idea of a good time is manually clicking approve 50 times in a row, this will quickly slow you down. In practice, you will absolutely want to enable auto-approval mode. This prevents you from getting bogged down by repetitive prompts and just lets your new agent team do their work uninterrupted. We've seen how they can be used for deep, impressive competitive analysis, but the potential applications are vast. You now understand how to trigger them, how they use subagents as building blocks, and how to save them as reusable skills. Which leaves us with one final exciting thought. What kinds of tasks are you all using dynamic workflows for in your day-to-day work? Think about your most complex, multi-step bottlenecks and imagine deploying a team of subagents to handle them starting today. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and happy building.